All right, so this is part 2 of our Algebra 2 review, studying for test 1 through 35. We've got question 13. This question is going to ask whether or not this polynomial that I'm going to give you has been completely factored or not. Okay, so it might start off with something like 7y squared. Let's see, we would get y squared. Let's see, what would we get? Let's try plus 4y plus 8. Let's see, actually, let's try plus 4 and see if that's been completely factored. If not, we want to go ahead and we want to factor it completely. Okay, so has this been completely factored? Is this broke down as much as you can possibly break it? Yes or no? Okay, well then you would move on, right? And you'd hit yes and go on with your day. Except you'd be wrong because I can break this down, right? I got a y here, I got a y here, plus 2 and 2, right? And so I'd get 7y squared there. In fact, I'd get 7y squared, y plus 2 squared in this case, right? So I want to look for, can I break this down any further? Okay? All right, like I said, it's going to be different on the test than this, so it may only break down to what you see here in step 2. The only reason that this goes down to y plus 2 squared is because these two wind up as the same thing. Okay? But if they do turn out to be the same thing, we want what we have in our final step there. Does this make sense? Okay. Just as a hint, like, usually on questions like this, very rarely is the answer just yes and move on. Okay? I'm not saying that it's not, but you want to double check things. All right, number 14. Okay, let's see in here. Let's see, they're going to say that oh gosh, this is going to be a hard one for me just to kind of make up. I'll do my best with it. They might say that the sum of a 2-digit number is 10. Okay? The sum of a 2-digit number is 10. Okay? If the number, let's say if the number is multiplied by, let's say, 3, and again, I'm making this stuff up, so if it doesn't work out all nice and neat, you'll understand why. If the number is multiplied by 3, you get, the result is, let's say, 110. Okay? We want to write and solve a system of equations to find that number. Okay? So let's look at this first part. The sum, I know it looks like S-O-M, but it's sum, S-U-M. The sum of a 2-digit number is 10. Okay? Let's look at it like this. Let's say the tens digit is x, and the y digit is the ones. X plus y equals what? 10. Okay? Okay? If the number is multiplied by 3, okay, the result is 110. Okay? So this is where you want to be really careful. If the number is multiplied by 3, well, this is how we would have to show this. Okay? 3 times 10x plus y, okay, is 110. Because what you have to remember is that these individual numbers up here add up to be 10, but down here they represent 10 of, it's in the tens place. Does that make sense? This is in the one place. You understand what I'm saying? Because what you're naturally going to do is just bring down and just put x. There's a reason I put a 10 there is because x represents a 10 value. Okay? All right, let's, what are two numbers that add up to be 10? Okay, let's try to pick maybe 7 and 3. Okay, 7 and 3. So 7 plus 3 equals 10. Okay, but 7 represents, this is representing the number 73, right? Okay, because it's a 2-digit number. So that 7 doesn't represent 7, it represents 70. 70. So what we're saying down here is 3 times 10 times 7 plus 3. Does that equal? I'm not saying that it does. Like I said, I just made this up, right? So there's 70. That's 73 times 3. Granted, it's way too big. But like I said, you get where I'm headed with this now? Okay, that value for x doesn't just represent 7. Okay, so here in red, this is how we would write this, and then we would have to solve for x and y. Obviously, in this case, I'm making up numbers, so it doesn't necessarily work the way that we would want it to work, but on the test it will. Okay, so are you guys prepared to see something like this on the test and know what to do with it? Okay? No? No? Okay. All right. Let me give you something else. Okay, let's say that, do we understand these two equations? You'll have to use 10 there on the second equation. Okay, now y represented the ones digit, right? So do I need to put anything in front of it? No. Okay, it just represents the number that it represents, right? In that case, it was 3. Okay, so we do still want to be able to solve this question, correct? All right, so let's see if we can actually solve it. Okay, all right. We've got x plus y equals 10. Now, we could go ahead and distribute this and get 30x plus 3y equals 110, right? And then here we'd have x plus y equals 10. Okay, so we can do a couple different things. I could set this up as a 2x3 matrix and solve, right? Or I could multiply this whole equation by negative 30, right? And I could cancel out, or I could eliminate my x values, correct? Okay, or I could change this equation, this lower equation, to solve for, let's say, x, where I would get x equals 10 minus y, and then I could plug 10 minus y in for x up here, right, and solve the whole equation for y, and then solve for x. Do we see the multiple ways that we could solve for x and y? Is it driving you crazy that it's bouncing up? And I wasn't sure if, like, my explanation was really bad, or if just doing this is driving you crazy. It's driving me crazy too, huh? Okay, sorry. Yeah, I mean, you can stare at that screen over there if it helps. Okay, so do we know what to do with this now? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, let's look at 15. Okay, 15. Okay, here they're going to tell you about an area of a rectangle. Let's see. And you're going to need to be able to find the length. It's going to tell you what the length is. You're going to have to be able to find the width. Again, I'm going to have to make up some numbers, so I'm not just handing you the question. Let's see. All right, let's say that the area of something is, let's see, 17x plus 72. That's the area of a rectangle, okay? And I know that the length of it is x plus 9, okay? You're going to have to solve for the width, x plus 8, right? And how did you get that? Right, so we could go ahead and figure out this. If you're going to do this, you would need to show me that you've FOILed it, right? Or what you can do is synthetic division, right? We know that we already have x plus 9, so I'm going to put a negative 9 in here. Do we understand the negative 9? Okay, so I've got 1. I've got negative 9. 17 minus 9 is 8. Negative 9 times negative 8, or sorry, positive 8 is negative 72, gives me a 0, right? That tells me x plus 8 is my other factor. Okay, so do we understand those couple of methods? The numbers on the numbers for the question on the test are going to be a little bit bigger, but I think it's a question that you've seen before. So make sure that you show your work in order to get credit for it. Just because you know the answer doesn't mean you're going to get points if you can't prove your understanding. Okay? Okay, let's keep moving. 16. All right, they're going to give you an equation. You need to tell whether it opens up or down. Okay, does that equation open upwards or downwards? Okay, now you need to explain. It opens up. Why? All right, so they would say that this value here represents A, and they're going to say because A is greater, let's see the way to put this. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there needs to be a 16 there. Or sorry, an X there. Okay. And it opens upward because A is greater than 0. Okay, so we're going to say up because of this, right? Now, they can just as easily say y equals negative x squared minus 16x plus 32, right? Which direction is that going to open? Down, and my explanation is because A is less than 0. Okay, it's A being less than 0 tells me that it's negative. Okay, does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Yes, thank you. All right, 17. All right. All right, you're going to get a table of values. You need to determine if it's representing an inverse variation. Oh, goodness. Let me take a look at this question here real quick. Okay, tell me about an inverse variation now. Okay, before we get into whatever the right side is. What's the equation of an inverse variation look like? Y equals k over x. So if I wanted to solve for k, what would I do? Multiply, right? So y x equals k. That's how I would find my constant. So whenever I'm looking for an inverse variation, I'm multiplying my x and y's to see if I get the same thing, correct? All right. So let's see. I don't know how well this will work all the way through. All right, so if we're looking for an inverse variation there, I'm going to take 2 times 82, 3 times 54 and 2/3, and 4 times 41. And see if I get the same thing all 3 times. I get 164 every time, right? So would we say that this is an inverse variation? Okay, so we would have to explain. We would say the product xy is constant, so the relationship is an inverse variation. Okay, if it's not constant, right, if I got 3 different numbers every time I multiplied, I'd say it's not constant, right? So the relationship is not an inverse variation. Does that make sense? All right, so we know what we're looking for there. All right, 18. Okay, this isn't one that we spent a lot of time talking about, but it does describe itself. Okay, let's see. So they tell you, let's try this. Let's try. Say we had coordinates 12, 0, and 4, 6. Okay, we got those coordinates. Determine a triangle with respect to the origin. We want to find the area of the triangle. Then we want to enter our 2 points into this. Okay, we're going to say x1, y1, x2, y2. What do those 2 parallel lines mean I'm doing with the numbers that go into this matrix? What am I actually solving for? The what? Nope. 2 absolute value lines of around what looks like a matrix. What am I solving for? Huh? Nope. The determinant. Okay? So I'd have to plug this in as a determinant, right? So I'm making matrix A a 2 by 2. So as it goes in here, right, x1 is 12, y1 is 0, x2 is 4, y2 is 6. So I'd be finding the determinant of this right here. Okay, does that make sense? All right, at the same time, you're going to be looking at a graph that's going to show you a triangle, okay, and it's going to ask you to find its area, okay? So let's say from, okay, so this is 12, 0 right here, right? This is 4, 6 right here, okay? So the base is 12, correct? The height is what? Is 6, okay? So what's 12 times 6? 72. What's 72 divided by 2? 36. So based upon the picture, I get an area of 36. Does anybody know what the determinant of 12, 0, 4, 6 is? What? It comes out to 72. So what we would say is that the determinant is twice as large as the area. Okay? Or the value, let's see. So we want to find the area of the triangle. And that's going to be the first part of the question, is what is the area? So our answer would be 36. The second part of the question is, how does the value relate to the area of the triangle? The value is twice the area of the triangle would be our answer. Does that make sense? So this would be part 1. Part 2 is this value is twice the area of the triangle. Twice. Okay, so you want to check and see whenever you work this question out tomorrow. It may not still be twice. It could be something else depending upon how these numbers come out. But the first thing it wants you to do is find the area of the triangle. Okay, 19. And I believe this is the last question. Okay, it's going to tell you about, it's going to tell you about a ski lodge. Ski lodge, one, they charge $10 per hour for lessons, plus $100 in insurance. Okay. Another place, they charge $20 per hour or $20 per lesson. But they only charge $60 in insurance. Okay, so we'll call this A, call that B. Okay, we want to determine the number of hours for which the cost of lessons is the same at both A and B. So what do I set up here?
You set them equal to each other, so it'd be 10 plus 100
How do I represent per lesson?
L
Okay, 10L plus 100
equals 20 L plus 60.
Okay. Now what? Subtract 60 from what? Both sides, right? Okay. Subtract 10L. Oh my gosh. I'm going to be sick. All right. So 100 becomes what? 40. So 40 equals 10L. Divide by 10. So they'll be the same at 4 lessons. Okay, can we represent that? You know what we're doing there? Okay. All right, that is 19 questions. That is part 2 of the video. So you guys are free to study the probably video number 1. Make sure that you understand everything there. Only 19 questions.